My name's Morgan Allen, and I'm interviewing my pawpaw.
Pawpaw Claude Allen.
Yeah, that's his full name.
Claude Allen.
Where were you born, and what was the date?
I was born here in Calhoun, Georgia, Gordon County, September the 26th, 1937.
How many children do you have?
I have 3 children.
Where do you live the majority of your life?
Here in Gordon County, Calhoun.
Have you ever served in the military?
I served in the military 1955 to 1958.
What's your religious affiliation?
What was what?
Your religious affiliation?
Pentecostal.
What advice would you give to this generation?
What advice?
Would you give to like teenagers and people growing up right now?
I think get a good education and do right be good to everybody, and do the best you can do. And if you can, go to college, whatever. But you don't have to go to college to be. My boss who went through the 8th grade, and he's several times a billionaire, I guess, and through the 8th grade.
When you were growing up, what was the role of boys and girls in the family, and how are they different from today's society?
Well, the boys and girls, they're just like they are now. They wanted to go on a date when they was about 25 years old. And now they, I guess I was probably 16, 17 years old for a while, really, dated.
They worked on the farm.
You better stop it, Tyler.
When you were growing up, what were some of the roles of the boys and girls in the family?
Well, we had to work hard on the farm. Plant corn, plant cotton, and pepper, and had to cultivate it. And I've even had little old girls come help me do that before I could go see them, And we worked hard, really. I sure was glad to get off the farm. I'm telling you, I went to work when I was 14 years old, down at Polar Girl Restaurant, and made $2. They took out 4 cents tax on me, $1.96. But I didn't work long. I was curb hopping restaurant. I didn't like that. I got a better job. I got one 75 cents an hour. And but now I had one before that on the farm for a quarter hour. Worked a quarter hour for 1 week. Man said, "You're a good worker." And he gave me 50 cents an hour. And I worked for him, tried my best to make $30 a week. Never did hardly make it about $27, $28 a week. And that was good money back then,
Yeah. Times really are different now.
Then I went to work. At $1.03 an hour. Boy, I like that. Making a little over 40 a week. I can't understand all that much now. You're gonna have to talk up a little now.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. What music, clothing, and food were popular during your teenage years?
Black bitches and pink shirt was real popular back then.
Really?
Yeah. And music, mostly gospel music.
How much did this clothing and stuff cost back then?
$2 a pair of breeches, and the shirt was about $2. It was real cheap then.
What about candy? Did y'all eat candy?
Eat candy?
Yeah.
Every once in a while we eat a little bar candy, but not much. Coca-Cola was a nickel, and a pack of peanuts was a nickel, and that's about the price of them. That was what the price was back then.
Describe your school, like the building and classrooms.
We had a 11th grade size it went, Bellwood School, and this little brick school was like right over there now, you know, except it's a little different, remodified and everything now.
What was socially accepted in your community, like women's rights?
What?
What was socially accepted in your community, like women's rights and racial differences and stuff like that?
Well, we didn't have any black nowhere around in the community, in this community. It was all up in town. And they had about 200 or 300 black in the county, and we was good to them. Never did. They didn't bother nobody. We didn't bother them. They worked hard.
What did you do for amusement, like to have fun?
Play basketball, softball. That's about all. We didn't have well, we did have volleyball, basketball, softball. Wouldn't let us play football then. The school wasn't big enough to play football. You could play a little after school, but didn't have no team or nothing.
What were the rules of your house?
Well, you had to be in early.
Okay, well, did you ever rebel? That's the question.
Well, you know, mine slipped a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. What jobs did you have throughout your life?
What job? Well, I farmed. I worked textile work, and I worked at the police department as a policeman, and I worked at Lockheed Aircraft, and that's mostly the job that I've done. Worked 32 years down at Lockheed, and that's then I drove truck for a few years.
What was your favorite job?
One I've got now, driving truck.
Really?
Like it better than anything, yeah.
Did you attend college?
I didn't have no college, no.
What presidents do you recall?
Kennedy was, I mean, you know, you get listening to everybody talking about your presidents and all, and I guess Herman Talmadge was our governor now that I really thought a lot of, and then the president was John F. Kennedy that I remember a lot about, and then from there on up, you know, the ones we got up to now, Bill Clinton is the best president we've ever had in history. And I can tell you who the sorriest one was, but don't
Let's not go there.
We won't go there.
Okay. What were some of the important news events that went on?
News events?
Yeah.
Well, the most important thing that I ever remember my grandmother hollering and thanking the good Lord and everything for the war being over. And that was, everybody was happy. And I'll tell you the happiest thing that she ever was, I ever seen my grandmother and granddaddy, was whenever Daddy went down to be examined. He's flat-footed and overweight, and they wouldn't take him in the army. And he had, I guess he might have had just 2 kids in, maybe 3, I don't know. That was in 42. The war broke out December 7th, 41, and sometime in 42. So, Daddy really, my grandmother sure was happy then. Everybody was happy Daddy didn't have to go to war.
What wars did you experience directly or indirectly?
What war?
Mhm.
For World War II, Korean War, and then the war old Joe was in over there. There wasn't no war, just police action. And these well, the ones that Bush started, and that's the only wars I really know anything about much.
How did the Depression affect you?
Well, really, depression. We had plenty to eat. Didn't have no money, but gas was rationed. We had tickets to buy gas with, and sugar was rationed, and it affected us that way. And you had to really save the can. You had to have salt and sugar and stuff like that to can. You know, we canned everything we ate. Had plenty to eat, beef and pork.
What technological items do you remember using for the first time?
Radio, television. In 1950 something or other, we had television. I won a television. Yeah. This auction going on. I won a television, brought it home. Nobody in my family ever had a television except me. A little 14-inch.
Describe the cars that you owned.
Had about 2 pair of breeches and about 2 shirts.
Cars.
Huh?
Cars.
Oh, okay. But stop it. I had a 1948 Studebaker, 1948 Ford Coupe, had a 50 Dodge car, and the next one I had was a 54 Ford, 56 Ford.
My name is Jackson Murray, and I'm interviewing Morgan's Memaw. What is your full name?
Ricky Pruitt Allen.
What is your date and place of birth?
I was born on September the 14th, 1947, in Cartersville, Georgia.
How many children do you have?
2.
Where have you lived the majority of your life?
Well, the last 42 years I've lived in Calhoun since I got married. Before that, I lived in Cartersville.
Have you served in the military?
No.
What is your religious affiliation?
Pentecostal.
What advice would you give to this generation?
To serve the Lord and to seek God's guidance in everything they do, and to realize that choices have consequences, and you have to live with the choices that you make in life, and you need to make them for the Lord, because the Lord's coming soon.
When you were growing up, what was the role of boys and girls in the family? How are they different from today's expectations?
Well, when I was growing up, we didn't really, children did the dishes and mowed the lawn and stuff like that, but we didn't ever have to do a lot of work like my husband did, because he was raised on a farm from a very poor family, and children were a necessity. But when I was coming up, we had a good time, but we didn't have anything like the kids have now, like all these iPods and iPads and cell phones and things like that. We usually played games out in the yard. We were yard kids.
What music, clothing, and food were popular during your teenage years?
The most popular music when I was coming up was Elvis Presley. That was the thing back then. And what did you say, the food?
Food and clothing?
Okay, food. We didn't have like all this candy and cereal. We had cornflakes. Our candy for the week was like one big long strip of suckers, and we would tear our sucker off every day. That was the candy. Our food was basically vegetables. That, my mother was a big vegetable cook, and She always cooked a dessert every day, but a homemade dessert. But we didn't have the things like they do now. All these different choices in cereal. We had Cheerios and cornflakes.
How much did the cereal cost?
Oh goodness, I don't remember. Probably about 50 cents a box.
Describe your school.
Our school, when I was in elementary school, the girls couldn't even wear pants to school. We had to wear dresses. And if you wore pants, Mother put pants on me one winter because it was snow on the ground, and I was afraid to go to school because I said, they'll send me home. And she said, you will wear what I put on you. And so but we didn't even wear pants. That's the difference in the style then and there is now. And when I got in high school, the girls were wearing pants, but it wasn't anything like what they wear now.
What was the building like? Was it big or small?
We had a big school in Cartersville. As a matter of fact, the high school I went to is still the high school today. Of course, they've added on and they've changed it, but it's the same high school. Now, my elementary school was, of course, tore down years ago.
Did they offer different kind of subjects than they do nowadays, or did they add some?
Well, no, I don't know. I really don't know what kind of subject. We didn't have like calculus. We didn't take a lot of algebra. We had biology and science and math and social studies and English and history. You know, the regular subjects. But now I'm sure that the schools now have, you know, offer more than what they did in ours. We didn't have any kind of like athletic programs except football.
What was socially accepted in your community?
Socially accepted.
Like religious beliefs, racial differences, women's rights.
Yeah, well, okay, well, when I was growing up, of course, my mother always raised me, you know, to treat everybody the same, and everybody's religion the same, and she didn't believe in, you know, like different races. I wasn't ever taught, you know, they're a different color or they're a different belief. You know, we were raised back then, it was almost like the Leave It to Beaver days back then, you know, just everything went smooth and we didn't have all the problems that they have now.
What did one do for amusement?
We watched black and white TV because we didn't have color TV. Nobody had color TV back then. And we watched the shows like Leave It to Beaver, Amos and Andy, and things like that. That was all that was on TV. There was no such thing as bad language on TV. No movies with bad language. No bad words were spoken. And everything was just clean, decent shows. And that's what we had to do, other than, like I say, the street we lived on, all the kids played, you know, we played ball in the backyard. And that's what we did. And rode bicycles.
What were the rules of your house? Did you rebel in any way?
Well, yeah, I had my share of spankings, but I wasn't really a rebellious child, I wouldn't say. But the rules in our house was, you know, we had to say yes ma'am, yes sir. You never addressed an adult without sir or ma'am. We had to say please and thank you. And we had to be in, you know, at dark. We would play up and down the street till dark. Mother never had to call us in. She never had to really call us in for supper because we knew what time supper was. And but you know, that was the rules of our house. And then we would like do the dishes. She cooked because my mother always worked. My daddy died before I was 3 years old, and so she worked all my life. But we would do the dishes, and we played outside. And then when it was dark, we knew to come in.
What jobs did you have throughout your life?
I worked at Lockheed for 7 years, and I've worked, I did alterations for about 30 years. And so that's the jobs that I had.
What did your jobs entail? Did you enjoy your work?
Well, alterations was, you know, like hemming pants and doing sleeve jobs on coats and taking up waste basically most of the time. Most of it was men's clothes because I worked in men's shops. When I worked at Lockheed, I was a typist, a department clerk typist. So I really enjoyed the alterations more than I did working in an office.
Yes, ma'am. Did you attend college? If so, what did you study?
And I went to a Massey Business School and then just took business.
What presidents or national leaders do you recall?
Well, I remember when I was in middle school, John Kennedy was elected. I remember that because I remember all those kids walking to school talking about who's going to be the president, you know, and we were all for John Kennedy, so I remember when he was elected, but, and basically as far as when I was a child, that was the one I remember. Of course, since I've been grown, I pretty much remember them all, what they did right and what they did wrong, in my opinion.
What were some of the important news events that you remember? How did you receive the news?
I guess the most important thing I ever remember hearing was the day John Kennedy died. And I remember where I was, what I was doing, and I remember hearing it on the TV that he'd been assassinated. When you hear something like that, it always stands out in your mind, and you always know where you were and what you were doing.
What wars did you experience directly or indirectly? What was your experience?
Wars?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess the Vietnam War. My brother did 2 tours in Vietnam, so I guess Vietnam would be the war that I would remember the most. And it was, you know, it was pretty tragic. He did 2 tours over there, and it really kind of messed his mind up. You know, he had post-traumatic stress syndrome, and he, you know, really kind of messed his mind up doing 2 tours over there.
How did the Depression affect you?
I don't think I was alive during the Depression. I was born in '47.
How did the long-term effects of the Depression affect your family?
We didn't, you know, my mother, I've heard my mother tell me stories about the Depression, how they had gas cards. You could only buy gas with your cards. You could only buy sugar. They would save their stamps. They had war stamps. And they would save their stamps up where that they would have enough sugar to bake their Christmas cakes. And they had gas cards, and they couldn't buy like a lot of shoes because all the rubber was used for tires for the military. And I've heard her tell things about that. But by the time I was born, you know, everybody basically was pretty much, I guess, poor or middle class, but you didn't know it because everybody was in the same boat.
What technological items do you remember using for the first time?
The first thing I ever remember using was probably a calculator, and that was probably when I went to business school. That's the first one I ever remember using. And it wasn't a calculator like y'all use, I assure you.
Yes,
it was easy.
Describe the cars that you owned. What were some other modes of transportation you have taken?
Well, I've owned, let's see, the first car I ever owned was a Plymouth. Bought it brand new. But we've had Pontiacs, we've had Volkswagens, we've had Fords, we've had Chevrolets. What was the second part of that question?
What were some other modes of transportation you have taken?
I've flown. I flew in an airplane, went to Hawaii. And I've been on a train, rode a train to New York. And I've ridden on a bus.
Are you a citizen of the United States? Naturalized citizen? If you were not born in the United States, where are you from? Are you the first generation in the United States? When and why did you come to the United States?
I was born in the United States, and my mother, before she died, traced our family tree all the way back to the Mayflower. So that's how far back we went.
Yes, ma'am. Tell a family story or a significant family event.
Okay, a family story. Well, I can't think of a family story, man. I'll turn that off and let me think a minute.
Yeah. We got to edit it. Tell a family story or significant family event.
Well, we've had a lot of family stories because I'm 64 years old. So, but one I can remember when I was a child, we had went up on this cliff somewhere on a Sunday afternoon, and my mother and my stepfather had gotten out of the car, and they didn't put the car in park, and the car started to roll over the cliff. It was rolling, and believe it or not, my mother held that car back. Because my stepfather had already walked away. Well, she started screaming, because all 3 of her kids were in there, and she literally held that car back until somebody could get in there and put it in park. That really happened. It's a true story. And she said that when something like that major happens, you have like a rush of adrenaline or something, and it gives you just supernatural strength to do it, because there was no way she could do it. But it happened. She did it. And I remember that.
Describe someone you admire.
Okay, is that like a member of a family or
Is anybody you admire?
anybody I admire? Well,
I couldn't think of. Describe someone you admire.
well, I guess I really admire my husband because he's 74 years old. He still works every day of his life. He works from daylight till dark. The man has more energy than anybody I've ever seen. And he's always been so good with his money. He's never been selfish. He's always given his family anything that he could give them and what they needed. He's just always, even as hard as he works, he will help anybody. He's one of the most accommodating people that I have ever met because he really will. He will help anybody. If he sees somebody that needs something, needs help in some way, he will go out of his way to help them.
What time period or decade was most memorable for you, and why?
I guess probably, are you talking about like back when you were young, that time period in your life? Or?
Maybe now, then, which one was most memorable for you?
Well, I guess most memorable is raising your children. You know, when you have your children, your life totally changes, and you know, you create so many memories because when your kids come along, you see the world through their eyes. You know, you go places that they like to go. You take them to, and really you see the world through your children's eyes. And then after my children were grown, then it went through the grandkids. You know, you start seeing the world through their eyes. And so I guess it would be raising children and grandchildren. Because I did get to, at least all of my grandchildren I got to keep from the time they were 6 weeks old. And even though there was 5 of them, and there was times I would be standing at the back door having their coats on when it was time for them to be picked up. I really enjoyed them.
Thank you for your time.
You're more than welcome.